Veronica held the lantern with trembling hands. Its beam sliced through the gloom of the library. Dusty fingers turned the pages of a codicil without a cover, its yellowed pages containing diagrams of intertwined celestial spheres and alchemical symbols. A drawing of Saturn, surrounded by rings that looked more like chains, repeated at irregular intervals. She heard the screech of a shelf sliding on its own, revealing a hidden niche. Inside was a thick glass vial containing an amber liquid and a broken metallic gear-like object. Touching it, a sharp pain shot up her arm, and for a moment, she saw shadows moving on the walls, like curious specters. The library door creaked open, and Veronica quickly hid the vial in her coat. A man with gray hair, glasses with one cracked lens, entered, carrying a stack of books. Arthur, the temporary librarian, had a rigid posture, like someone guarding many secrets. He placed the books on a table and pulled a black leather bookmark, embroidered with gold thread bearing the phrase, "Knowledge weighs more than lead," from his pocket. Veronica noticed that the pages of the books he was arranging were covered in notes made with silver ink, in a precise but unknown script. "You shouldn't be here," he said, without looking at her. His voice was a harsh whisper, like paper being torn. "Neither are you," Veronica replied, adjusting the lantern to illuminate his face. Arthur did not move, but the air between them grew denser, as if the sulfur in the room had solidified. The next morning, Veronica awoke with disjointed words in her mind. "Saturn's core," she repeated, not knowing why. The vial was on her table. The gear radiated residual heat. She placed it on an ancient map found in the library, and for a moment, the map's lines rearranged themselves, forming coordinates in the North Sea. Beside the vial, the leather bookmark Arthur had dropped during the argument seemed to pulse. When she touched it, a sharp pain struck her temples, and visions of a submerged metallic structure flooded her mind. Twisted columns, glowing hieroglyphs, and a central sphere resembling the Saturn drawing in the codicil. Arthur appeared on the pier 2 hours later, his eyes deep set behind his cracked glasses. He carried a rusty case, from which he took a compass whose needle pointed to the bottom of the sea. "They're watching," he said, handing the object to Veronica. "Those who fear the core." "Who?" she asked, but Arthur was already walking away, blending into the tourists photographing seagulls. Diving to the coordinates, Veronica found the structure. The gear in her pocket vibrated, aligning itself with grooves in the central sphere. When she inserted it, metal doors slid open, revealing a chamber with walls covered in inscriptions identical to those on the bookmark. In the center, a crystal capsule held a dark liquid, and within it, an irregular beating human heart. The air grew heavy with the smell of ozone and something older, like petrified wood. She reached out, but a mechanical voice echoed, "Only the memoryless can claim it." On the surface, Arthur watched the horizon through binoculars. A research vessel approached, its red flags with Saturn symbols fluttering in the wind. He tucked the case into his coat and disappeared among the dunes, while Veronica, down below, decided whether to break the crystal or let the heart continue its eternal slumber. Veronica stepped back, her fingers hovering over the crystal. The organ beat in time with a throbbing pain behind her eyes, as if Saturn's core pulsed within her. Beside her, the leather bookmark slipped from her pocket and fell onto a corroded metal plate. The inscriptions on the chamber walls glowed, responding to the object, and words in dead languages began to appear in the air around her. She tried to read one, but the word escaped her mind, replaced by a constant buzzing. On the surface, Arthur adjusted his cracked glasses as he watched the ship approach. The crew wore unmarked uniforms, but their movements were too precise to be civilians. He had seen this efficiency before. Years ago, he had seen men like these carrying sealed boxes into the library, whispering about balance and the weight of the sky. Now he knew they weren't there to preserve secrets, but to ensure they remained buried. Down below, Veronica pressed her palm against the crystal. The dark liquid inside began to swirl, forming patterns reminiscent of Saturn's rings. Fragments of memories that weren't hers flooded her mind. A submerged engine room, voices arguing about the price of immortality, and a man in a white coat holding the same crystallized heart, shouting at someone named Cassandra. The name faded before she could retain it. "You do not belong here," echoed a voice, not from the crystal, but from within herself. The leather bookmark warmed in her hand, and the silver notes in Arthur's books appeared in her peripheral vision, as if she were reading through water. She then understood that the object wasn't just a bookmark. It was a key that opened doors between realities, but it exacted a toll in lost words. The ship launched a probe, and the chamber floor trembled. Veronica tucked the crystal into her coat, but the heart continued to beat, even away from its enclosure. As she ascended, she found Arthur on the pier with binoculars hanging around his neck. "They will demand you deliver it," he said bluntly. "The core is not an artifact. It is a heart. And hearts always try to return to their owners." Before she could respond, one of the ship's crew shouted something in a guttural tongue. Arthur pushed Veronica behind a rock, shielding her from a beam of light that sliced through the air where they stood. The smell of ozone intensified, and the amber vial in her pocket began to vibrate, attracting the broken gear like magnets. "Run west," Arthur commanded, handing her a hand-drawn map. "Find the House of Tides. There, the heart will speak to you." "And you?" she asked, but he was already running in the opposite direction, attracting the beams of light like a puppet offering itself to the stage. Reaching the shore, Veronica looked back. The research vessel launched energy nets that ensnared Arthur, dragging him aboard. He didn't scream, only raised his cracked glasses in a final wave, as his last words echoed in the air. "Remember," he had said hours earlier in the library, "forgetting is the only antidote to what you will see." The heart in her coat beat stronger, and Veronica knew, with a certainty that didn't belong to her, that Saturn's core wasn't a secret. It was a warning. Veronica ran along the beach, the crystallized heart beating in sync with her steps. Arthur's map pointed to an abandoned building at the edge of the cove, its walls covered in bright purple lichen. The House of Tides seemed to breathe artificial tides. They rose and fell within broken glass tanks, and the remnants of a submerged laboratory emerged under the moonlight. In the center, a stainless steel table held an open journal, its pages filled with the same silver script as Arthur's books. The first entry mentioned a project called Saturn, an attempt to replicate the planet's core structure to generate infinite energy. The last page, dated 30 years prior, was stained with dried blood. Cassandra was right. The heart is not a source, it is a host. And it chooses. The amber vial in her pocket glowed, and the broken gear floated to the table, fitting into a hole in the side of the journal. The pages turned on their own, revealing a diagram of the heart connected to satellites orbiting Earth. Veronica understood. It wasn't an artifact, but a system. And someone or something still controlled its gears. Footsteps echoed in the outer corridor. She hid behind a tank, watching 3 figures enter. They wore breathing masks and black, unmarked uniforms, but one carried Arthur's rusty metal case. The leader, a woman with a spiral-shaped scar on her neck, approached the table. "The core cannot be destroyed," she said, her voice distorted by a device. "It can only be reprogrammed." Veronica pressed the heart against her chest, feeling it beat faster. Memories that weren't hers flooded her mind. Arthur, decades younger, arguing with a man in a white coat in a room full of monitors. "You're turning people into variables," he shouted. "Progress demands sacrifice," the man, Cassandra, replied. The scarred woman raised a dart gun. Veronica ran for the opposite exit, but the heart emitted a sharp buzzing, and the artificial tides froze. The journal floated to her, opening to a page marked with black leather. The embroidered phrase glowed, "Knowledge weighs more than lead." The words began to disappear from her memory. Cassandra, Saturn. Even Arthur's face faded, replaced by static. She understood the price of the key. Each secret unlocked stole a part of herself. On the beach, the pursuers surrounded her. The woman extended her gloved hand. "Surrender, and we'll let you live." Veronica looked out at the horizon. The research vessel approached, its red lights reflecting on the sky like a second Saturn ring. She thought of the heart beating in sync with hers, of the broken gear Arthur had dropped in the library, where it all began. "It's not yours," she whispered, and crushed the crystal against a rock. The dark liquid spread across the sand, forming patterns resembling constellations. The satellites in the sky blinked simultaneously, and a shower of golden particles fell upon the sea. The pursuers cried out, covering their eyes, as Veronica fell to her knees, the memory of her own name escaping like sand through her fingers. At dawn, a fisherman found her asleep on the beach, clutching a leather bookmark with no inscriptions. He tucked it into his pocket, noting how the leather seemed to pulse slightly, and went on his way, forgetting the incident before even reaching home.